Well, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak won his crucial vote on the Rwanda plan last night, with only 11 Tory MPs voting against the government. And just now, he's been giving a press conference live from Downing Street, defending his plan and calling on the Lords, the appointed Lords, he points out, to actually put this bill through and get it into law to stop the votes. But will it actually do that? Well, for someone who's been following all of this very closely is political correspondent at The Spectator, James Hill. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, I have to say, I think a lot of us are getting a little bit weary of Rwanda votes, Rwanda plans. It's been going on all week. It's been going on for an awfully long time. I haven't seen anyone actually being put on a plane and actually taking off yet. In terms of what Rishi Sunak has had to say today, basically say to the Lords, saying to the opposition, Labour and Lib Dems in the Lords, and indeed quite a few so-called moderate Tories, although why people think people are moderate, because they think, a mass illegal migration is an OK thing. He's appealing to them, saying, this is don't frustrate the will of the people, he says. Do you think his plea will work, or will it fall on deaf ears?
I think that the moment of maximum political danger with regards to the Rwanda Bill has now passed to Rishi Sunak, in that it's now gone from the Commons to the Lords. And now you can see him trying to utilise perhaps some of the 2019 playbook, talk about the unelected Lords, taking back control, getting Rwanda done, if you will. And so I think that it's going to be a very tough battle in the Lords, but it's a much more favourable battle for Rishi Sunak by dint of having his majority, being an elected Prime Minister, and the fact that we're no longer talking about Tory splits in the Commons. What I would say also, though, Julia, is that I was talking to some of the rebels last night, and they were saying, hang on a sec, we have got peers who are supportive of us in the Lords. We could put down amendments and lose. So we're not out of the woods yet by any means. It's going to face a tough battle. But I do think that Rishi Sunak was bruised, but will no doubt be feeling a sense of satisfaction that his bill has now left the Commons.
I mean, there was a big rebellion. It was a huge rebellion of 60 MPs, but it was made clear pretty early on in the week that actually, when it came to, push came to shove, very few MPs were actually going to vote against the bill as it stood last night. And as it was just 11 rebels. It did, though, include the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, and the former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, both of whom were absolutely instrumental in putting that bill together and pushing for it. And we know behind the scenes and then very publicly saying they didn't think the bill would work. If the two people kind of mostly involved in that policy don't think that it's actually going to make a blind bit of difference to channel crossings, maybe we should listen to them.
Well, that's exactly the argument I heard from many of the 60 who went through and voted for these amendments the night before last. And as you say, the fact that the people charged, Rishi Sunak charged with making this his flagship legislation and getting it through, was why they were so listened to. And that's why people are now talking about Robert Jenrick in terms such as potential kind of leadership material, etc., because he's seen as someone who has come out of the episode somewhat strengthened in his party position. I think that talking to some of the MPs, some of them were happy to go through and vote for amendments because they wanted to toughen it up, but they also wanted to signal to their constituencies and to a potential reform threat in their vote in their areas that they'd done all they could to strengthen it up, but they weren't actually going to, in the words of one rebel, burn the house down. They didn't actually want to bring down the government at third reading, and so it was a sensible way of trying to show how tough they are, but also not being willing enough to go over the top, as it were.
I was going to ask you about that. Is this about, doing something to strengthen the bill? There was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about trying to negotiate with the number 10 behind the scenes and sort of getting them to bring amendments themselves and to try and sort of force the Prime Minister's hand on the rebellion. When that failed, most people ended up toeing the line, saying any bill is better than no bill. But again, I wonder how much of this is about, say, Suella Braverman's leadership ambitions, Robert Jenrick too, possibly, but also, again, appealing to voters. A lot of people, we spoke to Jonathan Gullis on the show, Stoke-on-Trent North, proper, red wall MP has been calling out on this issue, since he's been in office. Actually, although he ended up abstaining last night on the final vote, but rather than voting against, but MPs literally trying to say to their own voters, look, you may disagree with what the Tories do, you may think this policy is failed, but I did my best, please vote for me. And this new poll that we've seen front of the Times today, showing, again, another whacking great lead for the Labour Party, but crucially also Tories down to, what is it, 20%? Just shockingly low, and while in office, and of course, Reform UK up to 12%. They are basically gaining like 1% sort of every couple of weeks right now. We've got a lot of weeks to the general election. That is looking pretty dangerous territory for a lot of Tory MPs, even with pretty sizable constituencies.
Absolutely, and that's obviously going to be at the forefront of MPs' mind. There was that big Telegraph poll on Monday, which said only 169 of them would keep their seats. That's more than 50% would be wiped out. And so you can see some of the behaviour of some of the rebels in that light, which is, hang on a sec, I want to differentiate myself from the position of the government. I also think there's just a sense of, will it work? The practicalities of this. And there was a genuine sense of, we need to make this because we've only got one shot at this. This is 3 strikes and we're out. We've had the Illegal Migration Act. We've had the previous Nationality and Safety Borders Act. So this is really the last chance saloon. And obviously, given how the state of the economy, there's only so many levers you can pull without spending a huge amount of money. The legislation is something MPs can control. It's within their gift, within their destiny. In terms of a leadership challenge, I just don't think we're at that stage yet. I think that most Tory MPs would think that it would be a farce to go through a third different change of leader in one parliament. And I'm also not sure you could really stitch together another government from different factions, etc., without causing more upset and rows. So I think that Rishi Sunak has now passed the moment of maximum political danger. He's going to get through. I think the next big challenge is going to be May, and we just have to see how the Rwanda Bill deals with the courts, and first of all, the Lords too.
Yeah, indeed. Do you think before the next general election, now likely to be in the autumn, we will see a single plane with a single migrant at least on board flying to Rwanda? If you had to put your house on it, put your home on it?
I'm sceptical, and I just referred to the words of one minister I spoke to who said it was more hope rather than expectation. So they hope they'll get the flights off. Whether they will remains to be seen.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Your analysis there. That's James Hill of The Spectator. Philip Ingram is still with me in the studio. Now, you're not a political reporter. You got your fingers in an awful lot of pies as a security expert. We talked a little bit earlier about, all the different aspects of the security threat here. But in terms of, the optics of this, the Prime Minister, he won this bill, but he's been seen to be sort of wrong-fitted. He's been shown to be, leading a party which is not united behind him. And one of his flagship policies, the pledge, Stop the Votes, one of the key 5 pledges, looks like, really, there's only one that is doing well on right now, which is inflation. And no one thought that had anything to do with any policies he'd brought in, either going up or going down. Do you think that he is now completely on the back foot? And this poll showing Reform gradually creeping up, and no matter what he does, Labour creeping up and up, 47% for goodness sake. Does that just show that he is on the back foot and he is going to be out of office by the end of the year?
Well, I think the way he delivered his speech this morning shows that he is on the back foot. And this is a Pyrrhic victory. The damage it's caused the Conservative Party, not just internally within the party, but throughout the country with the arguments that are going on.
You see, my thing is like there was lots of people on the moderate, again, they say left-wing side of the party. I don't think they're moderate, but their argument is that a united party, is vital. A divided party will definitely lose, but they look like they're going to lose anyway. But united around a policy that doesn't achieve anything, what's the point of that?
Well, exactly. But he's brought out some interesting points, and he's pointed at the opposition, said they've got no policy. Yep. I've been asking a lot of people on the Labour front bench at different meetings I've had about their policies, and there isn't any substance. We're in a political game of sound bites, and that's dangerous from both sides.
And voters can, again, I said this so many times, we're not stupid. We can see it. There's no flights to take off.
I think the polls, whilst they're hugely apart, I think when it comes to the actual election, it's going to be closer than people think.
I do think it's going to be closer, yes, certainly. But even so, it's going to be a hell of a lot closer for a lot of Tories to keep their seats, isn't it?
Exactly.